Hello everyone, I'm Sister Outspoken, the Poetic Priestess, your transformational coach and spiritual advisor. And if you are new here, go ahead and like, subscribe, you can place a comment if you like what you like. But this is Astro Weather Report, and this is when I report what's going on with the cosmos and the astrological transits that can support you in your day-to-day life. How you can stay empowered by pivoting through the challenges, not letting them overwhelm you, and just stay in the higher parts of your chart and the transits as the cosmos continuously move and the spiritual realm works with you to heighten your human experience. Okay, so let's get right into it. We're talking about July 17th to the 23rd today. And this week started off with the Grand Cardinal cross. What is that? That is when you're dealing with all of the leading constellations of each element coming into alignment, causing challenges within every fundamental aspect of your life. And why is that? Because they're making you want to work on everything at once. What is a cardinal constellation? So each constellation is ruled by what you would know as a zodiac sign. And the cardinals of each, constellation is a group of stars, if you don't know that. I don't know where you guys are starting coming into this space. So, as my Sifu would say, my Sifu astrologist, he would say, start from high level and bring it to eye level. So that's what I'll always try to balance out for you guys, all right? Okay, so what are the cardinal constellations of each element? You have Libra, which is the air element. You have Cancer, which is water. You have Aries, which is fire. And then you have Capricorn, which is earth. And I'm going to go ahead and take it like that, since that's how it was aligned within the cross that the constellations created. And we're going to start there with Monday and then go on through the weekend so you can see how things were set up for you and what's continuously happening to support you on your day-to-day process of becoming your best self. Now, you can also see, for those of you who have been here, go back, or if you haven't, go ahead and go back and look at my Grand Trine video so that you can see how what the setup was to prepare us for this, so that you could even be more grounded and more in a space to be ready for the test that came this week, right? We'll talk about that in a second. So, let's talk about this Cardinal Grand Cross. I'm going to go one step at a time in the layers of the cardinal cross, and then we'll just talk about the big picture and how everything may have affected you and what the challenge truly was, or test, I should say, overall. So first, let's look at the South Node that's in the 12th house in Libra. What does that mean? So the South Node is a star, and when it transits, or the power that it holds in its transit, and how it connects with your chart and the constellations, is it puts energy on what you've already learned. Rather, even when you're looking at your chart, it represents either from a past life or from this life, the disciplines you were supposed to already have, the lessons you were supposed to have already taken in, and what you've already mastered. That's the key word, what you've already mastered, right? So let's look at Libra in the 12th house. The 12th house is of endings, closures, karma. And Libra represents relationships. It governs the house of relationships and communication. All the air elements have an aspect of communication. So you're looking at the communication. The Libra is also balance. It's balance and harmony, relationships. You know, that mediator type of energy. So when you're looking at the balance, the harmony, and relationships, and the dual closures, and things you were supposed to have already mastered and learned, you're looking at what you were supposed to have already mastered and learned based on the different closures that happen within your relationships. And if, when weighing it out, it brings balance and harmony into your life, or it didn't. Or what did you learn to assist you in bringing balance and harmony within your relationships for the future? Now, that's all fine and dandy. The problem here is that it is squaring off. It is squaring off with the moon in Cancer in the 9th house, along with squaring off with Pluto in the 3rd house, right? We're going to go around like a circle and get back to Pluto. Now, I just want to let you know that that's happening, and then we're going to continue, okay? So let's first go this way. So we have right here the South Node, which you've already mastered and learned within your relationships and had to close out to start new beginnings. Challenging your emotional state and how you look at your emotional state from a higher mind, your emotional intelligence. And then not to mention the moon was in the new moon phase of the month. So that's the 3rd phase within the manifestation cycle when you're doing moon magic manifestations. Some astrologists look at it as the 1st stage, but when you're operating on my lineage of astrology and how I'm taught, we work in unison with the earth cycles. And when you're working in unison with the earth cycles, and this lineage of teachings of astrology has been tested over and over and over again in past. So I'm not just speaking on what I'm told, I'm speaking on what works, right? What works with me in my practice, my teachers' teachers, their practices, and the businesses that hire them. So that's where we're talking from here, okay? When it comes to the new moon, that's the part of the month or the part of the moon phase cycle where you're clearing, you're dumping, you're making space for what you're manifesting. You were supposed to already have done your planning and planting. Just like when you're working with your earth phase. For the year, when you're working beyond the months, which you should be, especially if you're my client, you should be on your shit. But anyway, for those months within the earth cycle, you're doing the clearing, you're doing the dumping, just along the same time as the farmers. When they're clearing and turning the dirt to plant new seeds for the new seasons. That's the time we were at on Monday. So what does that mean? That means that it was time you were in a space to clear energy along with the moon that was not illuminated by the sun during that time. It was clear. So it is your time to clear energy from your emotional state that causes you to have challenges and conflictions with seeing things that affect your emotional state from a higher perspective. Whatever it was that you already went through, letting it hit you from a clear state of being so that you can see it from a higher mind and be in a more intelligent space with how you handle your emotional state. By actually letting the closures happen and taking the lessons. That's the challenge. Did you pass your challenge or were you overwhelmed? Let's keep going. So at the same time, while the South Node is challenging the moon, which was in Cancer, so that was really deep emotions. Let me make sure I let you know that. And then the moon is challenging and being challenged by the North Node, which was in the 6th house of routines. The North Node was in Aries. Yeah, North Node was in Aries of routine. So what does that mean? So when you're in the house of routines, right? First off, North Node in Aries. North Node is where you're going. North Node is where you're guided in life. When it's in your chart, this is where that's where you find your purpose. That is where you always be purposely guided. So when a transit to the North Node is moving, it's just where you're being guided right now, right? So you are being guided in an energy of your ambitions. So look at your ambitions. First off, the 6th house is routines. So your routines that are supporting your ambitions, how you challenge yourself, how you look at yourself, your leadership abilities. Because Aries looks at the self, right? It governs the 1st house of the self and new beginnings. So how do you look at yourself and your beginnings and how you challenge yourself and your ambitions and the routines that support that? So you were being challenged with your emotional state and having a higher mind of things you went through and had to close out while you try to keep up your routines that support your ambitions and where you're trying to go in life. While also squaring Pluto, while Pluto is being squared by the South Node. So you have the North Node and the South Node squaring Pluto, and Pluto squaring them. What does that mean? So Pluto represents transformation, deaths and rebirths in life. Pluto is right now in Aquarius. It moved to Aquarius in March, but it's actually in retrograde. It went to retrograde some time ago. So when it goes into retrograde, it's deep in retrograde. So that means it went deep backwards into Capricorn. And the reason it's going to be doing that, it's going to do it a couple times over the next year, or I think 2, before it just sits in Aquarius. And this is why. We're going into the age of Aquarius. But we're already in the age of Aquarius, which is information, which is a different elevation of social awareness, right? The advanced consciousness, technology advancements. That's what Aquarius is all about. So what the cosmos is doing is bringing you a little bit backwards into that Capricorn to make you dive deep and remember and understand your foundation. Your foundation and your long-term goals. Because Capricorn is big on family, structure, foundation, status quo, and long-term goals. So it's going to make you look at your worth and understanding of those things and where you're at with those things before it shoots ahead. Because once you go back like this, it's like a slingshot. It swings back in retrograde and then forward. In mid-November is when it's going to shoot back forward. So right now, Pluto, which is transformations, death, and rebirth, is helping you understand what you needed to leave behind in regarding your foundation and things you've learned and understand regarding your foundation and your long-term goals in order to reach them, in order to renew your life, your practices, and yourself. Well, it's also in the 3rd house of communication. So you have what you learned from your relationships and those endings and what you needed to master to have peace and balance and harmony within your life and relationships. Challenging how you communicate, but challenging on the same time, trying to have your routines and stay focused on what's ahead and your ambitions and your leadership abilities and everything that supports that. Challenging how you communicate this process, how you communicate what you're leaving behind and taking forward, where you're at with your transformational process. And this is the test. The test comes with the fact that while those challenges are being taken place within the Grand Cardinal cross, Pluto has the nerve to be opposing the moon. And what does that mean? Some astrologers will always look at oppositions as challenges, like the squares, and then not necessarily challenges. It's on how you perceive it, where you're at and how you're operating with your chart, and what aspects of the chart you're utilizing to be empowered and to use it as a tool. When something is opposing another planet, it's acknowledging it. It's looking right directly at it and like, okay, how do I use this? Or the way I look at it is like this. I'm gonna give you an example. When you walk into a room, right, and you catch eyes with someone, you have 2 ways that you can take on that energy. You can lock eyes and automatically assume like, oh, what's up? Like, you staring at me, you got a problem? You know, you can have that type of attitude. Or you can see somebody staring at you and be like, hi, what's up? Hey, ain't you that person that does da-da-da-da-da? Oh, I seen your work. That's how the planets have the ability to utilize each other's energy within oppositions. You have the ability to look at it like, okay, I'm going to use this right here to help me within the tools that I have within these constellations to pivot through these challenges. So you'll be able to use that along with the trines. I'm looking at different camera spaces right now. along with the trines, if you have them right now. You know, we are when we do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Because we always want to talk about different ways you can be ahead of things and be empowered and not crumble by the overwhelming, by the intense energy that can't overwhelm you. You know, it's always going to be challenges, but challenges do not have to break you. You pivot through them so you stand on your square, as my seafood would say. Now, you always hear me talking about pivot this and pivot that, and that's because he uses those words, right? He teaches us to pivot through the challenges so that we're standing strong on the squares and utilizing all of this energy to our best benefit. And if you don't know these things, you're more likely to fumble and crumble and create a lot of blockages within your life. So that's what I like to help you guys on. So you're not blocked. So you're not feeling overwhelmed. So your things do not have to completely cease and desist. But you work on your timing and you know what's going on and you flow with the universe and allow your mystical energy to be at its best, right? So let's talk about this opposition. So the opposition was in some way a challenge. I'm just going to use that word. But what it was doing was it was intense energy, giving you the option to utilize your ability to communicate, your transformational process, and where you're at emotionally and able to see it from a higher mind through the challenges or lack thereof. So if you are a person that you communicate for a living, rather if you're a blogger, if you're a writer, if you are a battler, some battlers watch my stuff, a poet, a speaker, or just someone who likes to communicate within your community or your family. You may have felt intense pressure on how to communicate the challenges within your life, or felt an intense pressure to speak about it. And based on where you're at within those challenges, where you're at within those elements of your life is how it's going to be communicated, how your transformational process is going to be communicated, and where your emotional state is at. Is it from a higher perspective? Are you empowered? Were you above the challenges, or were you overwhelmed by it? Did it have you all over the place? Were you not able to produce or to continue within your daily life activities at your best? And why? That means wherever you had the most challenges causing blockages, that means that the cosmos is saying, stay still, be quiet. This is not a time for you to speak. This is a time for you to work on these areas. So when you do communicate, you're communicating from an empowered place and a higher perspective of your emotional state. Because you've already mastered what you needed to master and learn from the hard places of your relationships. How that affects your emotional state. How you're looking at that from a higher perspective. And how you're continuing your life and ambitions and routines that support your transformational process. That's the energy that the week started off with, you guys. That's so intense. So if you are a writer or a speaker, I'm going to talk in a minute of what else you can utilize that for empowerment, starting the week off, and then we're going to go forward into the weekend. But understand, when these transits happen, this is not an attack on you. This isn't a maneuver to bring the best out of you. And it's up to you to move accordingly, to understand accordingly, to take the time to sit and meditate, to see what things you need to work on, to dig deeper on, to advance in your life. So Monday was about all the elements. Where you at emotionally? And how conscious you are of your emotional state. What have you learned from your relationships that you had to close out or need to close out? Your deaths and your rebirths regarding, your foundation. I almost said communicating that to communicating your transformational process and where you at within your foundation and your long-term goals and your status quo. You know, like where does that look like right now? An urge to talk about that. So wherever you felt the most pressure, whether if it's your routines, if it is your foundation, your relationships, your emotional state, that's what you work on. That's what you work on. You find clarity. You breathe. You take the time to be honest with yourself. Journal. Talk to spirit. My favorite time to journal is between 4 and 6 a.m. in the morning when the world is still pretty much asleep and it's silence. And then the thoughts that come through is divine consciousness. And you spit out from a pure space to get your answers. If you don't have an astrologist, I would love to look at your chart and see how things are affecting you. We'll talk about that in a second. I want to get into that right now. Let's talk about these trines, okay? Okay, so now let's talk about what's trining what. And for those of you who are new and you don't know what trining is, that is when planets are about 120 degrees from each other. And in that degree, they empower each other. And I know some of you are like, her eyes is going from over there to over here. I'm learning the camera etiquette, you guys. Please be patient with me. I'm trying not to look at the screen and look at the actual camera. So if I go back and forth, don't be hard on me. Anyway, so what's trining? The empowerment of the being at a certain degree. Now, we have Uranus in Taurus in the 7th house, trining with Pluto in the 3rd house. So what energy is that empowering what, right? So Uranus is shakeups, right? So Uranus is shakeups, and Taurus is about structure, refining, beautifying your life, seeing the opportunities, seeing the resources and things that you have on hand in the 7th house of relationships. So shaking things up. First off, it's empowerment in shaking things up, looking at your relationships, refining things, shaping it, shaving off what doesn't need, seeing what you have on hand, being happy with that, and the resources that you have, how to utilize that to beautify your life, and then communicate it. Because that's empowering that Pluto. You know what to strip from your life already. You already refining it and beautifying. Look at what you have and what you're grateful for, the opportunities that you can see in sight. We shaking up all of those challenges. Forget that. You're going to look at what you have going on and be able to communicate that from a higher mind in your emotional state. Because also you have in the 5th house, Neptune in Pisces trining the moon. So while you're going through all that emotional stuff and wondering what you've already mastered, how to clear space in your emotional state to be able to transform and to be able to speak from a higher mind of your emotional intelligence, you have working with you Neptune and Pisces in the 5th house. The 5th house is all about fun, creativity, expression, a little drama, but we're dealing with trine, so we're not going to talk about the drama. You being empowered by being able to express and have fun with it. Utilize your creativity. Where is that at spiritually? Your imagination. That's big, because that Pisces and that Neptune is big on your imagination and your ability to dig deep within and be intuitive about it and express that. That is what was touching your moon space, your emotional space, while also being empowered. Like, look at being happy in what you have on hand. Communicate that. That is where your power is at right now. Don't be overwhelmed because it's a little hard to keep your routines and where you're trying to go in life, because you still got some things that are trying to weigh down on you from the closures you had to create, from relationships that weren't good for you in your life. Learn the lessons. Be happy with what you have on hand. Communicate that, your transformational journey, and keep with your routines and do your thing. That's what the cosmos was telling you. But if you don't understand the transits, if you're not working with an astrologist, if you're not getting this information, if you're not on these transformational journeys, then you're missing it, and a lot of time you're being overwhelmed. You're experiencing blockages, and you're not getting the things done that you would like to see get done, and you're not operating at your best. So that was Monday. Right? That's how they're going to start our week off. And if you go on Instagram, you can see how I was handling going through that time frame, how I was communicating that process and allowing it to work through me, because my spirit and my tarot readings say, express yourself, communicate, speak. So I did that, and I just kind of shooting from the hip. Well, not really shooting from the hip. Some things happened over the weekend within my clearing process, because I have to do cleanses at least once a week. But I was happy to I had a whole setup of cleanses going into the new moon, because that is your clearing phase of the month. Things happened. So if you go to my IG and you check those lives out, you'll see what I was talking about and how I was handling that emotionally and processing it. I communicated that. So if you do feel overwhelmed, again, it's okay. If that's where you're at in your process, take a breath. Be silent. That's your time to really be silent, And if not, and you are expressing, be honest, that you're not where you need to be in pivoting with the cosmic energy, and learn with others. Learn with others from professionals on how to do